like to call to order the RCCP Community Action Team Workshop, November 4th. Right now it's 20 minutes of 10 a.m. If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pete, Mr. Chair, if we could, I do have Amanda Zullo here that is joining us. Mike Robinson could not be with us this morning, along with Don York, who could also not be with us. Amanda has a meeting at 10 o'clock, and she's going to try to jump off on and see where we're at to see if she needs to stay on or not. Can we switch to do the survey first and do the vision and goal statements after?
Any of the board members have, the committee members have any objection to that? No. With no objection, proceed.
All right. Amanda, if you want to dial into the survey data.
Sure. And I have it pulled up on my screen so it's easier to see, but if you want to go ahead and share it on your end as well, or I can share my screen, however you want to do this works best. Perfect. Okay. Sounds good. So yes, I do appreciate everyone, being here today and taking the time just to go through the survey analysis. We did this as part of our engagement and outreach for the Resilient Coastal Communities program, and we actually had a really great turnout. So if you want to head to the next slide, just a quick recap. We had 119 total responses. The survey was live for approximately a month and a half. So great effort. Thank you to Chad and Lisa and team for really getting the word out to your community. We did draft this one-pager survey analysis report. This is more on the high-level aspect, and I believe everyone in the room should have a copy of this. So that is yours to take, and then Chad also has access to this presentation if you want a copy of it as well. So again, great turnout. We're going to kind of go through each of the questions and answer choices. So if you want to head to the next slide, and I'll be happy to answer any questions at the end. And again, we'll just kind of go through the answers and figure out, we're going to just hear basically what the public's concerns, what their priorities are, and just see what happens. So the first question was, what is the relation to Sunset Beach? The vast majority of people do reside in Sunset Beach. The next tier is people own residential property in Sunset Beach, and then others reside in Sunset Beach. We did not get any feedback from people owning commercial property, but most people do live on the mainland, and we're the ones who were taking the survey.
May I ask a question before we go further?
Sure.
What is the significance? We got 119 participants out of 4,100 possible respondents, which is sort of roughly 1 out of, 2.5%.
It's less than 3%.
Yeah, and so.
Amanda, did you want us to wait until at the end to ask questions? We don't want to interrupt your flow.
Yes, no worries. I'll be happy to do it however, whatever works best for you all. I will say, a survey is only as good as its outreach. So considering that, Lisa had tools at her disposal using email, using social media, I know Chad and Lisa did a great job getting the word out, but again, it's only as good as the advertisement and getting it in front of people. This is a very tight project. It's a quick turnaround. And, we did try to keep the survey open for as long as possible, considering the fact that the team, Dawn and Mike and others, needed to obtain the data as soon as possible to help with that vulnerability and hazard mitigate or vulnerability assessment report. So we feel good about it. I will say, we're working with Navassa and Leland. Leland had approximately 145 people take the survey, and they were open for 2 weeks longer. So in terms of this project, we feel comfortable with the 119 participant number, considering the size of the town. So we're not going to get everybody. We had more time, we had more budget. We'd obviously be able to leverage tools. But we do feel good about the sampling that was able to provide answers for us.
Okay, thank you.
Works for you. Yep. All right, so moving on to question 2. Question 2 asked, which of these types of natural hazards have you experienced or been impacted by while living or working in Sunset Beach or its vicinity? A lot of these are going to be relative to storms. So we're going to see loss of electricity being, the most common response. Second to that is wind damage caused by hurricane, as well as blocked or flood roads. Flooding comes in fourth, so flooding caused by storm surge and or tropical systems, extreme rainfall events, and impassable roads. Those are the top 5, natural hazards. And again, they're all going to be relative to storms and to hurricanes and power loss and whatnot. So not too surprising there. At the bottom, we had loss of cell phone service, water supply, wind, caused by tornado, flooding caused by extreme erosion. So again, this information shouldn't be too surprising, just considering Sunset Beach's location on the coast. So if we move to the next question. Question 3 kind of builds off that, off question 2. And question 3 is, how concerned are you about the possibility of your community being impacted by each of these hazards? So again, there's a similar sentiment between questions 2 and 3. This one switches things up a bit. People are most concerned about wind damage caused by the hurricane first, and then loss of electricity. So those two actually flipped from question 2. Flooding caused by storm surge is top 5 most concerned, sentiments from people. And again, the others are more indicative of what we saw in the lower tier responses for question 2. If we move to question 4, this one was, in your opinion, which of the following types of assets, an asset being a place or thing that is of use and value, are most susceptible to natural hazards in your community? This again was a weighted average questionnaire, so this was more based off themes. So first, the most weighted average was environmental. That could be damage, contamination, or loss of wetlands, waterways, habitats, and dunes. The second asset type was personal property, which could be homes, vehicles, etc. The third was commodities. That could be, loss of access to gasoline, food supplies, grocery, etc. Fourth was infrastructure, considering damage, loss of roads, bridges, and utilities. And fifth was people, and that could be in relation to injuries and or loss of life. So those were the top 5 types of assets that people are concerned most, that are relating to natural hazards in the community. What I think was interesting was the ranking of that, right? I mean, environmental, people are obviously very concerned about, Sunset Beach's natural environment. Considering people came in 5th, I thought that was interesting. I figured people would be more higher up on the list. So
could I point out, please, that there are two items tied for number 5. People and emergency/medical services.
That is correct. Yep,
So-
they both
so-
ranked 3.44
Yeah.
on the list.
So we
Thank
actually
you.
have 6 in the top 5.
Yes, good call on that. If we go to question 5, this was relating more to natural hazards impacting a community. But planning for these types of events can help lessen the impacts. So we created a series of statements, and we asked, again, a weighted average, if the community can help us prioritize regarding which of these statements are, best suited for planning for environmental and climate-related hazards. And again, a lot of this type of sentiment we'll see later in the open-ended question, which is question 8. Preventing overdevelopment and loss of pervious surfaces was ranked 1st. Preventing development in flood hazard areas was ranked 2nd. So again, not surprising seeing development being the top 2 concerns, especially in a growing community like Sunset. The third is protecting and reducing damage to utilities. The fourth is protecting critical facilities. So that could be doctors' offices, police stations, and fire stations. And then the 5th is protecting private, that could be residential or commercial property. So a lot of concerns about development, utilities, and critical facilities for that. In the lower tier, we had protecting roads and bridges, enhancing the function of natural features, strengthening emergency services, that could be police, fire, and ambulance, promoting cooperation among public agencies, citizens, nonprofit organizations, and businesses, as well as protecting local businesses and tourism facilities. So overdevelopment, again, ranked in the top two, and so were critical facilities and private property. If we go to question 6, so this is, I guess this was the last question. This was the more open-ended question type. And so instead of showcasing all the responses, again, Chad has the full survey analysis if anyone wants to read through the public's sentiment, but we thought it was more helpful to kind of think about this as grouping of themes, as well as, generating a like a word tag mentionnaire that indicates, which words were showing up most frequently. That you can tell by the large text on the graphic as opposed to the small text. So, you can see right off the bat, water, development, dredging, community, flooding, infrastructure, clear cutting, those types of things. If we scaled it back and looked at the analysis of the word tags, to the right of the screen is the top 5 themes that were showing up. So again, overdevelopment really was indicative of some of those other question responses. We're seeing that as a growing concern, not only for Sunset Beach, but also in Leland and Navassa, the other 2 towns that we are working with as part of the RCC program. Dredging did come up. And again, when we chat with Chad about this, and Chad, feel free to chime in, dredging is something that people might have a negative connotation to. It does have the ability to be thought of in terms of, sediment, what am I trying to say, how we're trying to maintain the waterways and how we could do so in an educational way. There are benefits to the environment with that. And so people might initially have a negative thought toward dredging, but, just by sharing the narrative in a very different way, we can actually showcase how it could be very beneficial. Land could be moved to help with restoring living shorelines, natural habitats, etc. So it does have a way to take it as a concern, but make it as an opportunity instead of a challenge. The third thing that showed up was stormwater management, which again, considering Sunset Beach is a coastal town prone to flooding and whatnot, stormwater is going to be a top tier concern, and infrastructure came in 4th, as well as sustainable growth. So what's interesting to me is sustainable growth is directly correlated to overdevelopment, but it seems that overdevelopment is a very top concern compared to the sustainability of that growth. So to me, they go more hand in hand, but I can see how the public might think of them as a little differently. And so, so I want to obviously leave room for questions. We can circle back through the questions if you had any particular thoughts or concerns about either one of the questions. So, Chad, I guess I'll leave it up to you guys to...
Go ahead, Pete.
Amanda, the slide that is up right now, I don't know that was in my packet. Now, maybe it was and I just missed it.
No, it's not mine either.
I would like to get a copy of that for future reference. Chad, if you could send that to the committee.
It was a presentation that was created for this. I gave you the more detailed.
I know, and it was very detailed, but I just didn't see that slide.
Yeah, I will be more than happy to forward that on to y'all.
Just as an observation, and this kind of bootstraps off of what Mr. Corbett brought up in an earlier question. As I see it, we have about 6% of our permanent population resides on the island, of our 4,100 people. Most of our property owners on the island do not reside here and claim it as their primary residence. But with that being said, 27, almost 28% of the respondents for the survey were permanent residents of the island, or at least they claimed to be. I know there was no verification of that when the survey was being taken. But that to me seems, first of all, hats off to the permanent residents of the island for taking the interest in being such good participants in our survey, because the survey is important. But it really shows that situations on the mainland, which I think are key, such as evacuation, access, egress, particularly power loss because there are overhead wires more on the mainland than on the, in fact, there's virtually none on the island. I think that that's going to skew, and I'd like the committee to consider that as we go through and look at these survey results. It does to me seem like wetland protection and environment erosion control are really the key words, and I think that those top themes there kind of bring that to the point. Any questions from the other committee members?
Ron?
I guess to follow up, I kind of agree with Pete. Kind of when I read through this, I had sort of the same feeling, being a mainlander also, I guess. I only took the survey once. Maybe that was the problem.
You can only take it once.
Well,
You can only take it once.
yeah, man.
Like a dog can take it.
But anyway, and then I noticed on question 2, we asked the road thing twice. I'm not sure if that skewed the data a bit, because we asked it as blocked or flooded road, and then we asked it as impassable road. So I'm not sure if that skewed the data a bit, because I would have thought that would have been higher on the concern list, because getting in and out, getting emergency vehicles in and out, getting food in and out, water in and out, would have been more. Not only that, it's something actually we can work on. Right? It's actually one of the items that we could actually do something. Raise roads, you can widen roads, you can create stormwater around them, you can get the poles away from them. So there's lots of things we can do for roads, actually. And it did, so I was a little surprised that didn't come up in that second or question 4 or whatever it was, maybe, or question 3. It didn't come up as high as I would have thought it would.
Can I comment?
Sure.
I mean, if you take the 48% of the blocked and flooded roads at 33% on impassable roads, you come up with, well, that's a challenge. 81% of the people had some concern.
Right, but then on the other
with roads.
question, they didn't put it as high.
Yeah,
It could have been the same person answering affirmative to both, too.
Yeah.
true. Yeah, I mean,
So-
that's
I don't know if that just messed up the data a
Yeah.
little bit by having that, but
what that does, though, is it kind of throws stormwater out of the top 5, and stormwater is something that's pervasive both on the island and on the mainland, particularly in dealing with storms and hurricanes, stuff like that.
And Chad, I do have one quick point on that. So question 2 was which of the types of hazards have people already been impacted by, versus question 3 was how concerned are you about the possibility of your community being impacted? So question 3 is more of a concern, and 2 is more of a, which have you already experienced? So that could be the
but Amanda,
difference.
you would think if somebody were already impacted by it,
Right.
that the first pop in your mind is, I don't want to be impacted by it again.
Right,
So
I
you would
agree.
answer the next question.
I
So I was
agree.
a little confused by how that came out. That's
Yeah.
all. I'm not saying the people were wrong that answered. It just seemed a little odd to me.
Yes, I do agree with that.
Mr. Farrell?
To the point that Pete brought up, there were 32 people for question 1 that were identified as residing on the island, and 32 out of the 6% that of the 4,100 is like 13% of the.
Yeah, there's like 250 people or 200. It's hard to know because we haven't had the census results yet. But say,
Right,
in
but we
2013, there were 213 people that lived on the island permanently.
Yeah, we had an overall 3% participation, but we had a very high participation from the island, which is good. I think we need to keep that in mind.
John?
2 questions. Did you have one? No. Sort of 2 questions. So Amanda, are there any surprises in this ranking at the top 5 level, considering the nature of our community? And the second one is, okay, we've got these rankings and this data. What are we supposed to do with them now?
Yeah, we're going to get to that in a second.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Amanda, do you want to add? Yeah, and I can start into that conversation, but Amanda, do you want to answer the first one?
The first one was not to the top 5 tier, but what was the first part?
Yeah,
First question
any
again?
surprises that you
Any
saw?
surprises? No, and I'll be frank, because we are working with, Sunset, Leland, and Navassa, it is interesting to see how even though the three towns have a very different growth pattern, very different opportunities and challenges, the same sentiment is still showing up, right? I mean, overdevelopment in the coastal communities and the impact of that overdevelopment on the natural landscape and the beach, and that is not surprising. People are drawn to the beach for, obvious reasons. And with that, that draws more people, and then it starts putting a strain on your infrastructure, your planning aspects, relating to how to build properly in a sustainable way. I think that is a sentiment that many towns, whether they're coastal or not, are experiencing with just the nature of people moving to very, attractive areas. And then with that, how to handle the stormwater, how to handle the conservation of resources, how to handle clear cutting, air quality. A lot of the concerns are all, in my opinion, interrelated. And it's almost like you have to look at resiliency as more of a holistic approach, because it's not just about climate change or sea level rise. It really is this interconnectedness of all these components, and how do you accommodate communities growing, and how do you not put too much strain on your natural resources? I think that's going to be a big challenge for any community moving forward. Yeah. Dredging, again, dredging does come up as a concern, whether it's coastal communities in North Carolina or coastal communities in Florida. We see a lot of that level of concern, across any Atlantic coast community I've worked with the last, 10 years. And yeah, I think to your point, the road concern was interesting. My thinking is, if I'm living on the island and I need to evacuate, a bridge is going to be one of my biggest concerns, because if I can't cross the bridge, I can't leave the island. So I think, in my personal opinion, infrastructure would play a larger role, and how that works in terms of evacuation routes for when there's a hurricane. But yeah, I'm not too surprised with the sentiment that's showing up in the analysis. And I think it's pretty well evident that we're seeing these same concerns showing up in other towns as well.
Amanda and I had the exact same conversation yesterday, along with Dawn, is that I asked them more about Leland, more specifically, did you see any differences, and take dredging out? But you look at the overdevelopment, you look at the infrastructure, you look at the stormwater, all those things popped up in their top 3 to 5. The difference being between one of the main differences is with us and Leland, besides bigger and all that, is that they welcome it. That's how they started this. They welcomed it with open arms, where they wanted the more growth. They wanted and they're closer to Wilmington. When I worked in Pender County with the Hampstead area more specifically, Leland is Hampstead is getting the growth. I mean, if you drive up 17 to Jacksonville, you'll see it. Try doing it at 7:30 in the morning or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. You'll find an alternate route to go around there. But the difference between Leland and those places is Leland actually got ahead of it a little bit, where they're about 10 years ahead of Pender, but still behind on their infrastructure, as we're seeing that with the bypass now going around Hampstead, and that date's supposed to, I think it's been pushed off by a few years. Same thing with the Carolina Bays Parkway. We're seeing that needs to come through here as well. So, Sybil, did you have anything?
Oh, well, I'm going back a little bit. I found that I got more information from the notes that people left. I think if they cared enough that they put this in here, these are real issues. The people who skipped it just net. And I think that deserves more concern. And granted, it's still a lot of the same issues. But when it comes to rating them, I think you're right. I mean, we have got to start with infrastructure, building. I think those are the 2 top concerns.
So Mr. Corbett alluded to okay, now what do we do with this information? And Amanda can help me with this. December 2nd is going to be most likely the next meeting that we will have. And the reason because of that is, now that they are taking all the data that we've given to them from the survey, from the input, from the community action, open house engagement that we had with the maps that Don took back from Moffitt Nickel. So Moffitt Nickel and their team will, I've talked to Don a few times. We tried to look at doing it before Thanksgiving. We thought it would be better to move it till after Thanksgiving to give them more time. But December 2nd, they are drafting a risk vulnerability. You will get your risk vulnerability assessment on that day, a draft of it. So we will be looking at that. And then that goes into the project portion of everything, looking at that. And Don alluded to at the open house that we've already got a jump start on that, and providing that data to them. We will be able to take the risk assessment draft, adopt it, but also take that risk assessment draft and then apply that to what we've already gotten to now and start getting into the fun part of providing projects for the town. Yes, sir.
Just as a comment, I believe that a significant contribution that Moffitt Nichols can make to this committee and to the town is to look at the project list, and there's many projects that we have determined should receive some attention in the town that would be resiliency related. However, Moffitt Nichols is in, I think, a position superior to us to better understand what is going to qualify as bell ringers for Raleigh. And there's certain things that we can ask for that may not stand as good a chance as passing the litmus test with Raleigh. And so I'd like to see them look at our projects that we have so far and kind of, I don't want to say rank them, but say, that one's not realistic. No, that one's not realistic.
Hopefully my next statement will echo what Don might, or not Don will, and Amanda might say, is that they are to guide us. Y'all will be coming up with the projects in conjunction with Moffitt Nickel. I don't think Moffitt Nickel is going to, or the consultants or staff is going to get in the way of what projects or how many we have, what projects we have. And so don't let that deter you from pinpointing it down to one. Again, the capital improvement aspect of this is let's get as many as we possibly can out of this. Let's look at the whole broader spectrum of this. Now, when it comes to the grant, there might be some input from, Amanda, correct me, some input from this team to, hey, out of the 3, 7, 10, 15, 20, these 1 to 3, 5, whatever might be your best chance to get the eyes of a fully funded grant from the state. But that doesn't mean we still can't have 5, 15, however many projects we want to look at it. And Mr. Corbett can kind of put him on the spot here to look at a capital improvement position for the town specifically.
Well, and that's very powerful too, because it made us think, and there'll be some things that don't qualify here that town council can take under consideration. I agree 1,000%.
Yeah.
But as an example,
please don't let that limit you as a community action team to how we move this forward.
Dawn made a comment at our citizens meeting the other night, which that hit home with me. She stressed the point that nature or naturalistic solutions really needed to be there. And if we don't have them, we're kind of shortchanging ourselves on qualifying for some of these available grants.
So
it's that kind of information that Moffitt Nichols, I think, can steer us in a better direction. We can't pick our projects.
Right. The project should come down. You should have one infrastructure, one natural resource base, and then one hybrid, if I'm right, Amanda.
Yes.
Yeah. So the one that's probably going to get the most eyes in Raleigh right now is probably the hybrid of the 3, or more the natural resources one. But that doesn't mean, and again, I will say this: don't look just at Sunset Beach, the Sunset Beach ETJ. Span that out. Go to 17. Look at our infrastructure getting out of town through Calabash. Look at this area, because we're the only one south of, I mean, you got Leland and Navassa at the northern part of the county. We're the only one in the southern part of the county that got this opportunity. So,
And they have
don't-
more industrial concerns, things than we
I
'cause we
think,
have.
well, no, I mean, looking at the survey of talking to, Dawn and Amanda yesterday, because Amanda has worked with Leland. If you look at in about less than 25 days, I'll be a resident of Leland. Their concerns are the same as ours: overdevelopment,
Okay.
infrastructure, stormwater,
Yeah,
getting in and
agreed
out.
with that, yeah.
And if you look back at Hurricane Florence, those were I mean, where I live in Winnebago, going to Leland, I couldn't get there. In fact, the closest grocery store I could get to after Florence was the one in Charlotte. So you have, I mean, and we've all experienced this here, getting back after Hurricane Matthew and Florence to our homes after leaving here if we didn't stay. So those are the things that play into this as well. It's not just Sunset Beach; it's all Brunswick County. Yes, Mr. Corbett.
That sort of brings a question in. Did Ocean Isle, Holden Beach, even maybe Oak Island, did they apply for these grants? Did they get them? Is another company helping them, or did they?
Amanda, do you know the answer to that question?
Yeah, that's a great question. I can definitely look. I know when we did the first community action team presentation, we did have a graphic that DCM presented on that showed all the different communities that were applied and accepted, and which consultant is working with each of those. So I can circle back, grab that image, and then
there was
send
a
it to
map,
you,
right?
Chad.
There was a map.
There was a map graphic.
Yeah, there was a
And-
map graphic that showed the towns that were awarded the grant. It didn't.
And
I
by
don't-
who? And by
And by
what?
I
who?
thought Oak
Correct.
Island might have been in there.
I don't. And
No,
now
it wasn't.
it probably does not show who applied.
Right.
All right. Now I do know that we are the most southern one, and I think that Sunset Beach, Leland, and Navassa were the only ones south of Jacksonville. I don't know if Surf City got awarded it or not, but I'm pretty sure that the three of us were
We were the only ones in Brunswick County.
the only ones in Brunswick County, but I think we're the only ones within our southeastern hazard mitigation
Right.
county that
But
got
to
awarded
John's
that.
specific
Yeah,
question,
but-
we don't know who applied
Correct.
and who then therefore was not considered.
Yeah, and I don't know if Amanda can have that data or not, but yeah.
Well, part of if I could just
ahead,
the
Tony.
follow-up part of that is there somebody else, as we were thinking through these projects, and you said expand beyond our borders, is there somebody else who's working on something similar which would interact with, overlap with one of our concerned areas that we should be talking to?
I can check. I can talk.
I mean
about it. I
that's
can look into
where
that.
the question is going.
Sure.
So.
I can look into that.
Mhm.
Mr.
There's
Farrell.
just 3 in Brunswick County.
Um,
And those are the consultants.
This is a question for Amanda. Does Moffett and Nickel have any environmental scientists that are with geospatial expertise that could put together a GIS base map with all of this information that we could work from to get a good overview of how all this comes together?
I think Rachel is the GIS project person on
That-
this.
Yeah, that's correct. I say yes, we do have those abilities in house, but at the same time, I'd have to check with Dawn because I don't believe that was intended to be part of the scope for the project. So I can ask her and
Okay.
she can get back to Chad with that.
Well, to that point, this has become a point of interest to me, and I sent you an email. I don't know if the town has a license for
Mhm.
ArcGIS Online, but I don't think it's difficult to work with.
It's difficult to work with.
It is.
Oh yes.
But we do have a license.
We do have a license.
But it seems like it's critical though, because once you map the thing, it's permanent. I mean,
Yeah.
you have the location of the critical infrastructure. Well, it's not permanent, I mean,
It's not
but
permanent.
it's on the record of being looked at, judged, whatever score of
Yeah.
risk.
Mhm.
As opposed to looking at lists and stuff, if you got a map and whether you ABC it or whatever, figure out how to put it. I don't know how this works. But
Yeah,
it seems like that would be a critical part of this. I guess if it's not an ongoing thing, we don't care.
And-
If it ends in February and it all goes in
And
the
at
drawer.
the open house, I made a point to point out the critical risk map that was there to make sure we take all this in consideration to mark that one up the most. Not that the others weren't important, but it was also, right now we only had 3 points on it. We had the 2 fire stations and the government building. The other towns put bridges. I think Food Line was one of those ones that were circled on there for us because that's our food source in the town. Gas stations, I think, were another one that were brought up. So taking all that and then implemented, I think that's also on.
But if that's not in the contract, which it sounds like it's not to do,
It's part of
would
it.
it be worthwhile
It
to
is,
get a
yeah.
price? It is. If it is, then it should be done. If it's not,
Right.
then
Well,
maybe we should look at how much it costs to get it done.
the other alternative is to get some coaching from Moffett and Nickel. My daughter-in-law has used this program.
Mhm.
She's a social worker, and she's told me with a little bit of work you can use this, and
Yeah.
it's not hard.
Okay.
This,
not hard
this
to
does
do.
bring up a whole new town staffing situation. And, if we're going to take GIS seriously, it's more than just the
Right.
RCCP program. There's things we can use it for.
Yeah.
But
I have the license to it.
but town council needs to approve that position.
Well, you just missed the point there. We have licensed, qualified GIS personnel in the town, who
Okay.
are the resource that we can,
the resources
use.
there.
I'm going to say that he has other jobs to do though, Sue. So it's going to be, it's more complicated, but I agree with what you said, Councilman.
Yeah, well, we can put him on a 9-hour day, not an 8-hour day.
Matt, Dustin, and I have the license, and it's
Okay.
my goal toward the beginning of the year to start manipulating that a whole lot more than I have, and possibly even look at training on that. I've gone through training before, but like I said, it's a pretty difficult program to start getting a grasp of. So,
Okay.
Amanda, did you have anything else? Did you
Good
want to
point.
stick around for the
Very-
vision and goal part of it?
Yeah, I was actually just about to email you because I wasn't sure if I can share a screen. I'm going to email you, Chad, the map graphic that shows which communities are part of the RCC program and then which contractors are working with each of those
Okay.
communities.
I think they
So-
have that
We have
graph.
that,
I think they were more looking for what other communities applied but did not get it.
Yeah, that's probably a DCM question because we're not privy to the
Right.
back end of that.
Okay.
But yeah,
If
and
there's-
I've been taking notes. I'm going to send them over to Dawn so that way she can
Okay.
circle back with you, Chad, on getting some of those answered for
Okay.
you. And yeah, if you want to just let us know the vision goals, what y'all decide on.
Okay.
Mike feels very comfortable with what happened when he was on the call with y'all last time, and he's very much looking forward to seeing what y'all come up with today.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Amanda.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Amanda.
Thank you,
Have a good
Amanda.
day, everybody.
All right, so the vision and goal statement, you have 2 documents. You have one that I took a stab at of addressing his. If there's a certain thing when I was going through college and experience, it is drafting vision and goal statements. If you look at Mike's comments and applying them, I would be comfortable with. You can take my document as written. We can edit it. And we can also, what else of Mike's comments do we want to implement into this? Or how do we want to do this? I think with 5 people here this morning, there's enough intelligence in the room to get this narrowed down and done, and where I can email you comments from it and redo this.
Do you want to go
What-
down the row here, starting there
Yeah.
and work our way through and
Well,
each of
Yeah,
us make a
Sybil, do
comment?
you want to?
No, I don't want to start.
We're looking at the vision statement first.
We can look at both, however you
I
want
think
to.
we split it up in 2.
Okay,
Let's look at the vision statement first and then circle
Okay.
back on the goals.
It's Sybil, I can start at the other end if you'd like me to.
Yes, I
Alright.
would because
Ron?
Well, okay, the first page was the vision statement that we sent in, right?
The first page was,
Basically.
Yeah, okay. And
This
then the
right here.
Second page, who, M1, is that Mike?
so
And
these are,
M2?
Mike is the comments and the green stuff. Mike is all of this. I did not do
Use
any
all the
of this.
margin notes.
Okay.
Yes.
And all I can see, even though it wasn't highlighted, was on the vision statement, either him or somebody, or maybe you did, Chad, I guess.
No, it was
added
Mike.
the or unnatural disasters, right? Or unnatural, right?
There's,
Which is okay. And then Mike seems to like go through and question the unnatural part, and then say it should be like called something else, man-made, et cetera. But to me, I guess when we wrote the vision statement, obviously we focused on natural and environmental, but I have no objections to me, the unnatural just means everything else, right? You can call it man-made or not man-made or not, but
And I
if it's
changed-
natural or unnatural,
Right.
natural, that's everything.
yeah, and I changed that back to with effects of natural disasters or environmental hazards to rapidly return to normalcy after such events.
Right. But to me, whether that's in there or not is fine, I
Okay.
guess. I guess I less agree with changing it to man-made or human or whatever. To me, if you say it's natural or unnatural, it covers everything. Because if you look at the Southeast Hazard Mitigation thing, I mean, they list some not unnatural hazards as being high risk, such as cyber and hazmat, et cetera, up there in the high risk category. So I guess I'm okay with if we're going to include a wider range than natural stuff, I'm okay with the unnatural word because that just says everything that's not, by definition, that's everything that's not natural.
Okay.
As opposed to getting into whether it's human made or man made or person made or whatever. If it's other than that, because I helped write it, I guess I'm okay with the vision statement.
Pete?
I agree with Ron. To me, the word unnatural, I had trouble with it.
I don't like it.
To me, it was
Unnatural?
it was unnatural. I liked the first sheet that I think you
It was
kind of
me.
massaged a little bit.
What I
and
did
I
was
think it reads better.
Yeah, what I did was I took Mike's comments and applied it into the first sheet, which is my sheet of taking a stab at taking what was given to Mike, the comments that Mike made, and then applying it just to a consolidated one without comments. And then the second sheet is what was provided to Mike Robinson. He made comments back of, and it is just that raw sheet with his comments, excerpts, what to take in, what to take out.
I liked what you did, and I believe that the second sentence in the vision statement really caps it by talking about making a commitment. So that this just isn't a one-shot deal, that we're making a unified commitment, and that we're including people in it, and readiness, and planning, and those are to me are the key words that we need to have in our focus as a vision.
Okay.
So I liked it.
Mr. Farrell?
I like your version, but I would make it more concise. I would delete create an environment which enhances. I would just start with enhance the ability. I mean, our vision is to enhance the ability. I don't know why we have to say create an environment. I like to simplify things because in the simplest form, people understand it. And in the second sentence, Pete makes a good point, and it should include a commitment to advancement. I don't know that we need to add shared and unified. I mean, that's kind of implied to me, but I think the simpler we can make this, the more understandable it is, and the more it reflects what we're really trying to do. Adding all these adjectives to it, to me, is confusing.
Okay.
Point well made.
Mr.
That's-
Corbett?
I agree with everything John said right there, and I like this. My short version of this was survive, recover, and move forward, and I think this vision statement enables us to do that. Those are the things that that I'm looking for in this vision statement, and that's there. So I'm comfortable with this. I think
Civil?
John's addition to yours
Okay.
is good.
I agree. I was really confused when you all of a sudden asked me, I'm going, wait, what? But yes, I do prefer the first one because it's to the point. It doesn't add, it's to the point. It's everything that needs to be done.
All right, so I'm going to read this, and we can accept this, enhance the ability to withstand the effects of natural disasters or environmental hazards and to rapidly return to normalcy after such events. This includes a commitment to advancements in planning, preparation, readiness, and focus on protecting critical infrastructure and saving and protecting lives and the livelihoods of people, property, and the natural habitat of the town.
I'd like to hear a motion for acceptance of that statement. For the vision statement, I agree with Ron that we should deal with these separately so we don't confuse ourselves.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
What I will do is I will retype this and then send it out to everybody. All right. Ron, if you want the vision and the goals statement of this.
Again, I was involved in writing them, so I'm fine. I just noticed that, I guess the change, the first four.
I think the only change I made.
You added the fifth one, protect
Yes.
environmentally sensitive area.
Yeah, and that was off of Mike's comment. I think off the green part on the second page.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
I guess to me, that's already in the natural habitat of the town. So is that just redundant?
I don't know if it's redundant or just going off of what Mike said. I mean, it could be redundant, but I put it in there just because I was looking at.
But to me, having up to 5 goals is fine.
Yeah.
And the 5 goals seem to be well balanced between what we're trying to do. So I'm okay with the goals as you wrote that.
Okay.
Leaving that one in.
All right, Mr. Larkin.
I particularly liked, and of course it's a product of Ron and myself and Katie, which we thank Katie for her assistance in that. The number one, the first one, I think what it does is it brings elected officials, citizens, town staff, it brings us all together to make this a shared and unified statement. And so I particularly like that.
Okay.
And I agree with Ron. I think the addition of the fifth one, I like the fact that it specifically talks about wetlands, floodplains, things that we
Environmentally
should be
sensitive
very,
areas.
that's our responsibility.
Yeah, because I will point out that I mean, when we look at a CRS part, and I'm still learning through a lot of this, is the hazard rating we get. One of the bigger things that will always get us a lot of points will be the vast majority of our open space of Bird Island. It's a conservation. Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong. It is conservation and is deeded that, and will always stay as that. So it's a part of our town that environmentally sensitive. It is a big asset to our town, is what I'm trying to get at.
No question.
John Farrell.
I'm good with this. That's
Okay.
fine.
I'm
Mr.
good with
Corbett?
this, and I like adding specifically the environmentally sensitive areas. I think that's
Mrs. Kirsten.
Kirsten?
Yeah,
Okay.
Kirsten.
Yes, I agree.
Okay.
I'd like to entertain a motion to accept the goals for Sunset Beach as part of the RCC goals statement as is written and provided to us by Chad without any revisions. I'd like to entertain a motion for that.
So moved.
Second.
Second received. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so staff comments before we adjourn. December 2nd, again, I will not be here. Miss Anglin will be able to help run that meeting. Wes will be here, or Sam. I'll help get them up to speed on this as well. That's going to be the December 2nd expected draft of the risk vulnerability assessment from all of this information to come to you. Know that it is going to be a draft. It will be presented as a draft, and then we'll have some time probably. I don't know. I'll have to get with Dawn on how she wants to do that. So I'll try to email some procedure stuff of how we want to move that forward. And the second meeting in December, we'll probably look at adopting that draft and then move into the meat of this, into staying on schedule and to look at goals or projects for this based off of everything that we have. Dawn and her team does have the survey is now closed. They have the comments back from the open house, and it's their time to kind of take this information and put it into a document to present back to us.
Okay.
We're going to do the second meeting on the 16th of December as scheduled.
I'll have to
the
look
Thursday,
and just
the-
double check that.
It's the planning board
Yes.
is scheduled for this
Yeah, we'll
next
look
date.
at that. Yes, sir.
Okay. And is it possible to get that draft risk assessment report several days before the
Yes,
meeting?
it will
so we
come out
can-
as a packet like this one did well in advance, so you'll have some time to review it before the meeting.
But we're only going to get it on the September.
I don't know when we
December
will
2nd.
get it, and that's the thing. I know that the second is going to be exactly 1 week after Thanksgiving. So my planning board agenda packet will go out that Monday or Tuesday before. The resiliency packet, I guess we'll have to work with Lisa, and if you would like to push that back to the RCCP back to the second meeting in December to give you more time to review it, we can certainly look into that. But I assume since we're not going to meet again in November, we were going to essentially just do that on the back end of the planning board meeting for the 2nd of December.
How does the committee feel about that?
I think we ought to do it on the 2nd, with as many days ahead of time to have the draft to look
Yeah.
at.
Yeah.
But I don't think we should delay.
If we
The
delay
initial
it, that
discussion
we're
about that
essentially
draft
pushing off
package.
2 more weeks
Yeah.
of this to what
Even if
we're
it's the
working.
first time we see it, it will
Correct.
still be, we can accomplish something.
Okay.
I think so. I think
All right.
that's a good idea.
Ron?
Okay.
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be communicating with Dawn over the next couple weeks before Thanksgiving, and I will relay that message and try to. It's essentially we can have the agenda will be easy. It's just what will go into the agenda is to Lisa as quick as I can so she can get that out. The good thing about that is the planning board packet will already be out, and probably the council packet will already be out. So sending out that via email and posting it on the website is not, and it doesn't have to go into the agenda packet program. So that's pretty easily. So I can try to do as much as legwork as I can, just getting what the contents of the agenda packet and out to y'all as quick as I can.
Any more staff comments
I
beyond
do
that?
not have any.
I'd like, with the committee's indulgence, there is not an item here for public comments. However, this is a public issue. And seeing how we do have one citizen in our audience that is not town staff or on the committee, I'd like to give them the opportunity, which they likely will decline, to speak. 3 minutes. But I wanted that in the record that we
Absolutely.
opened it up to.
And what I'll do is I'll start
comments.
putting that in there, and that's, you can blame that on me.
All right, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn at 10:32 a.m. on November 4th. Such a motion?
I so move.
Seconded?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.